Hi, everybody. Welcome to our very special International Women's Day conversation. I'm so excited to see all of you here. And by the way, you are the best crowd ever because everybody's coming here. And before we even started talking, people have been dropping in comments, saying hello, saying where they are in the world. So thank you, everybody. Keep doing that. Hi from Oman. Lena is from Chicago. Sarah's in Victoria, Canada. Catherine's in Tucson. Lucy's in Portsmouth. Nayla is in Los Angeles. Melanie's in DC. I love this community and I love this internationality. We have so many great people here. I hope that we have a really good conversation for you all to be part of. If you haven't met me, my name is Beth Santos, and I'm founder and CEO of Wonderful. And I am so thrilled to be spending the best day of the year, arguably, right? International Women's Day. It's all about all of us talking about something that's really important, which is the state of the travel industry, what travel has done for women and what it has left to do. I have a great fireside chat that I'm bringing you in for. But the other thing I want to bring up is that if you've been to any of my live streams or webinars before, you'll know a couple things. Number one, I'm talking out loud right now and you all are not able to, but you can participate. And how you participate is in the comments. So if you're watching this on YouTube, comment as you go. A bunch of you have already started doing that. Ask questions, give feedback, tell stories, meet one another, use this as an opportunity to network with each other. We are also broadcasting on LinkedIn and we're broadcasting on Facebook. So you'll be able to watch this video anytime. You can watch the recording anytime by just going to the same link that you're using to watch this. So if you have to step up and take a bathroom break, go for it, come back. You can always watch a recording later if you miss anything. But we're here. It's a real treat. And let me throw a couple slides up for you because I want to get you everything that we need to get started for this. So playing with the technology. So here's some cute little slides. So International Women's Day, we're talking about how we can make travel better for women in 2022. And of course, the very first thing I have to say is everybody give yourself a little pat on the back. Happy International Women's Day. I don't know if you get flowers on that day or if your significant other completely forgets that it's an important day or if you get gifts or whatever it is. I hope that you're taking some time to honor yourself because at the end of the day, that's what this day is about. It's about honoring ourselves. It's about being mindful about the world around us. And it's about loving and sharing this sisterhood. So welcome to everybody. Happy International Women's Day to all of you. The other thing I want to bring up is that, and I'm going to make this screen nice and big so that you can see it here. We are always talking about this stuff on social. So I have a slide in here. If you want to take a screenshot or take a picture and share it on Facebook or Instagram, you can follow us at She's Wonderful. My own social handle is Maximum Beth. And then my fireside chatter, Nikki, you've got her here as well. Unearthed Women, Knickknack Vargas, and Wanderous Book are all of her amazing Instagram channels. So take a screenshot of that. Make sure that you have it so that if there's anything great that you hear, quotes that you want to write down or things that you want to share, we want to hear you sharing those stuff. So definitely feel free to do that. And then the other thing I want to say is you're all here free. This is a free and open event. We make this possible through our wonderful brand partnerships. We have a number of really amazing brand partners that support our work, that are committed to making travel better, making their operations better. So I just wanted to give them a huge thank you for being part of this and for helping support us and for this event. Now, for those of you who don't know about Wonderful, and I see a bunch of you who are posting in about some of the things that we have going on upcoming, I cannot wait. Wonderful is an international collective of travelers and travel content creators, and we're all on this mission to make travel better for all women. And this word all is very important to us because it doesn't just mean helping travelers, which we do a lot of. We have a whole membership community where women can connect with other women around the world. We have chapters in 50 cities. But when we talk about all, we also talk about women who are affected by travel in different ways, women who work in the travel industry, women who are in the hospitality space, women who are representative of local communities that are affected by travel. And we also talk about the various intersections that we have as women, not just being one type of woman traveler, but how our various identities interplay into our experiences as women around the world. So that's a really important part of what we do at Wonderful. And you'll see a lot of that really embedded in some of these challenging conversations that sometimes we have. We don't always talk about travel being perfect. Sometimes travel is extremely imperfect. And that's something that we lean into and really talk about. This is a quick shot of what we do. I'll let you look at that a little bit more closely. We have a couple things that are most salient about us. One thing that a lot of people know us for is for the summit called WITS, which was formerly known as the Women in Travel Summit. It's a professional event that we do to bring together content creators, members of the industry, all together in one room to talk about the future of travel. We've paired that up with the Bessie Awards, which is an annual award show honoring women of impact in the travel industry. The next one is happening in Kansas City in May. That's an in-person event. I know, in person. Oh my gosh, we haven't done those in years. And speaking of in person, we have our very first major outdoor travel festival by and for women called Wanderfest happening this upcoming weekend, March 12th and 13th in New Orleans. We are so pumped to get together. I know there's a couple of you who are saying that they're going to come to Wanderfest and they can't wait. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. We're going to have inspiring speakers like Onika Raymond and Patricia Schultz, the author of 1,000 Places to See Before You Die. We have Chef Crystal Wapepa of Wapepa's Kitchen coming. She's one of the first Indigenous chefs that was ever featured on the show Chopped. We have music. We have a parade. We have Celebrate Women Marketplace, all sorts of stuff. And so that's going to be a really fun in-person event that we're doing, and we'll do it every year. And then finally, one thing that really launched for us during the pandemic was our membership community. And what we found was women who love to travel, who needed a place to connect with each other and who needed a support network. And so we started our membership, and that goes across 50 chapters. We have in-person chapters that meet every month to just go out with each other, to connect with each other, to share their stories with each other. But then we also have an online component where you can meet women all around the world. We have virtual events almost every day. We have a global hosting network. So whenever you travel with someone, you have a local access point of somebody who can take you out for a cup of coffee or host you in her home or help you out in whatever way you need, give recommendations. And Alicia, you're absolutely right. It's self-care. And that's something that we talk about a lot at Wonderful, is taking the time to invest in yourself, to invest in this deep love of travel, of seeing the world, of being globally minded, of knowing more about yourself. That's a really important investment in self-care and in yourself that we all should take some time to do. So it's an amazing network. And I say all of that because I want you to all stick around for the end, because we're going to do a very special giveaway, both related to a membership discount as well as related to a really cool book that's just come out that I know we're going to talk a lot more about. And with that, I want to segue into our main conversation, which is with an incredible leader in the travel space who I admire so deeply. Her name is Nikki Vargas. Nikki, I'm bringing you to the front here so that we can get a better look at you as well. And let me just brag about you a little bit and read your bio if that works. Okay, no. Nikki is a travel editor, author, and writer, originally from Colombia and now living in New York City. Currently, she's an editor at Photos Travel and the founding editor of Unearthed Women, a women's travel publication she founded back in 2018. Her work with Unearthed Women has been featured in the New York Times, Good Morning America, CNN, Vogue Spain, and the Washington Post. As an author, Nikki's represented by Paradigm Travel Agency and is the author of Wanderess, a travel book dedicated to helping women travel smarter while showing them how to support and connect with women globally. Wanderess was published by Clarkson Potter and Penguin Random House in February 2022, so last month. And previously, Nikki worked as the travel editor for The Infatuation, Atlas Obscura, and Culture Trip. And I can say personally, she is an incredible writer, an incredible voice in this space. You do so much, Nikki, I think, not just in, this topic of talking about travel, but this topic of talking about travel through this intersectional feminist lens of how is the travel industry affecting us and what more can we be doing? And I think that's why I'm really excited to be talking with you in particular today of all days, because that's a conversation that we need to have. Am I right?
Yes. Well, first of all, happy International Women's Day, Beth.
Happy National Women's Day.
I can't think of a better way to celebrate than to like sit down chatting with you and just like discussing the state of travel and also enjoying my boobs
The
cup.
boob mug. I need one of those so much right now. So much.
Yeah, so cheers everyone out there.
It's so good. Well, and Nikki, tell me about, I mean, there's so many places to start, but I think one thing that I want to do before we get into like the book and everything else is your role as founding editor of Unearthed Women. And can you tell, for people who don't know about Unearthed Women, can you just give them a little synopsis of what it's about, what kinds of things you feature, et cetera?
Yeah, so Unearthed Women started in 2018, and I actually started it when I was laid off from being a travel editor at Culture Trip. Culture Trip, they had sort of slashed their editorial staff in the New York offices. And it came as a big shock because I loved that job. It was really one of the first times that I had sort of stepped into the role of a bona fide on-staff travel editor. And so after 2 years of working with them, and we were sort of unceremoniously shown the door, I was completely lost in my career. And I had this moment where I was interviewing for different jobs, and I remember I was in Brooklyn. I'm going to set the scene, Beth. It was cold, it was dreary. I was somewhere near Dumbo, and I had just sat down for an interview with this male startup founder. And I sat there for an hour telling him all the ways that I could pour my experience into making his company get off the ground. And
we've been there.
We've been there. And I remember feeling like, what would it look like if I took everything that I just told this person and put it into myself? What would that be? And I had this moment in time where I was on unemployment and I was kind of in between things. And I had always wanted to create a publication that celebrated women's stories. My background was in journalism, and I was sort of outgrowing the kind of travel blogging phase of my 20s and sort of gravitating more towards these investigative stories and reports on women. And so Unearthed Women became that manifested dream. It became this platform where I sought to tell women's stories. I sought to create city guides that pointed travelers in the direction of women-owned businesses. And I sought to sort of fill a void that I saw in the travel media landscape, which was addressing women's needs as travelers. And that continues today.
One thing that I love that you said, which I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, but I think this stands out so much it's worth repeating, which was basically, what if we invested in ourselves the way we invest in others? And but it's true, right? I mean, you're talking about the story of the so many times you tried to pitch yourself in front of somebody else, and yet having this thing that needed to be said. And it's become, I mean, honestly, I cannot underline enough how transformative I think some of the stuff that you talk about in Unearthed Women is, and how it's almost sad that it wasn't spotlighted, like that kind of stuff wasn't like the main topic that we were talking about before. Because one thing that I'm always talking about in travel is that here we are, women are 80 to 85% of decision makers in travel. We are 2/3 of all travelers are women. I mean, women dominate travel in so many ways. And yet I still remember sitting at a radio station in Chicago and, being on this show, and the host of the show being like, "Oh, women in travel, like that's a really neat niche. What got you thinking about that?" And I was like,
"Oh gosh,
well, it's not though." But I see, where that's coming from as well. I mean, it's so underrepresented, under talked about, that we think about women in travel being this like niche that falls into the categories of like, okay, safety, fashion, maybe beauty advice when you're traveling, and not so many other topics. And I once said to somebody, I was like, rather than women in travel being like the niche topic, women in travel should actually be like the keynote topic, and then everything else should be the niche topic, because that's really what it is. That's who's actually traveling out there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I mean, when I look back at sort of the genesis of Unearthed Women, and also just kind of where I'm at in my career, so much of it was born from frustration of navigating the travel space, both as a professional and as a traveler. And to your point, it was just this assumption that women are kind of a minority in this travel industry when really we're the majority of it.
Right.
And in a professional sense, and as a writer, I kept going up against this glass ceiling where I would have bylines denied. I was underpaid, sometimes not even paid at all for stories. And it just got to this point of frustration where I wanted to try to create something to kind of counter that. And when I spoke to other women in the space and I heard their frustrations as professionals and as travelers, I saw that there was a need for something like an Unearthed Woman to sort of step in and be like, okay, if nothing else, there exists this platform where we will champion your stories. We will pay you for your stories. We will show travelers how to visit a place like New York and not just point you in the direction of the High Line or Times Square like every other guide out there, but we're going to point you in the direction of women-owned businesses and BIPOC-owned businesses, because that is what moves the needle. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, I really believe that as travelers, we're uniquely positioned to positively impact any destination we visit. And it really sort of comes down to the choices we make as a traveler. And so much of what I create and sort of, you know, with Unearthed Woman and with Wanderess is so much of it is rooted in pointing travelers in the direction of supporting female entrepreneurs and supporting women-owned businesses and learning women's history of a destination. Because to your point, that is so left out of the conversation. It's unbelievable. You know, not only women's history, but just pointing travelers in the direction of like women-owned businesses is such a simple, low-lift task. But that money lining the pockets of local entrepreneurs is really what stimulates local economies. And so that is, now I'm going off in a digression, but
no, I love it. I'm like, keep going. Yep, go for it. Get it, girl.
That's a big focus of like Unearthed Women and Wanderess and everything. And also I know of what you do too, is that just trying to get travelers to realize that you have such an impact, you yourself as an individual traveler, of not only how you can affect an economy by how you spend your money, but also how you can affect the perception of a destination by how you choose to talk about a place and how you choose to portray your time there. And that's something I think that I'm always trying to get people to realize.
Well, and you're touching on so many things that I feel like this conversation is going to become a 7-hour conversation very quickly and easily. But we're all going to be here, everybody. I don't know if you have something to do, but we're going to be here. No, but I mean, talking about perception of place, talking about, you know, how we're even illustrating a place. I mean, sometimes we forget and we think that, okay, when you go to a place, there's sort of like the standard list of things to do. Well, even that top 10 list of things to do, that's just somebody's perspective on what to do. That might be like a completely different take than somebody else's reality of what a place is like. And I think it's really interesting how I was just looking the other day for, you know, if I say I were to travel somewhere and I wanted to find a woman-owned hotel property to stay at, there's not like a place that exists that you can just find easily women-owned businesses in places when you travel. And that's, I know something you're tackling with your feminist city guides, but it's like, it's amazing how, and to that point, I mean, we talk about the travel industry is dominated by women, but a lot of the businesses, there are a lot of businesses that are owned by women, but a lot of women are missing from senior leadership in some of the bigger companies as well. And so really talking about how we can, you know, focus our energy on getting more women into the pipeline, supporting women-owned business, supporting grassroots voices. And you talked about, and then I'm going to get off my tangent. You talked about using our own money and our own power as travelers. And that's something I talk about regularly, which is we have to stop looking at ourselves as active or passive travelers who are just kind of going to a place and observing. Of course, we're doing that, but we're also actively investing in the place while we're there, right? We're spending a lot of money when we travel. We spend thousands of dollars when we travel. And the only other kind of person who spends thousands of dollars at any given time is like an angel investor. So if we started thinking of ourselves more as like angel investors in the travel industry, that's going to change how you start making the choices you make of what kinds of businesses you're supporting, of where you're eating, of where you're staying. Because and I think it's important for us to do that, to look at ourselves in that lens, because we do have an impact wherever we go.
I love that you just like compared it to angel investing, because you're right. You're right. Like at the end of the day, you are investing in a destination and in a community and in people when you choose to travel there. And I thought it was so interesting what you said, that it is actually really difficult to find women-owned businesses, even
Yeah.
in the States. And there
Yeah.
have been some strides in, to that degree, where you see things like, for example, if I were to search coffee shops in New York on Google Maps, there's going to be badges that label it as this business identifies as women owned. That's did not always exist. And that is a
That's
huge
awesome.
step. Yelp also
Yeah.
mirrors it too.
Yeah.
That's great. But that's not for everywhere in the world right now. Those are only for key cities within the United States. And so pulling together a feminist city guide for a place like Beirut or Bangkok or Buenos Aires, it is a challenge to try and identify those women-owned businesses. And it's why we lean so heavily on writers, on our freelance local writers, that or people that have spent ample time in these cities, that they can shine light on these businesses. Because if we're not able to find it, and we're searching, we're actively digging through the internet trying to find these women-owned businesses, how are travelers going to find these businesses if they're in Buenos
Right.
Aires for a week?
Right.
How are they going to find
Right.
these businesses? How are these female entrepreneurs going to get a slice of that tourism budget and that pie? And
Right.
so awareness really is key.
Well, and you and I, we're talking about how hard this is, and we work in this industry.
I know.
Like, it is our job. Imagine
Yeah.
somebody who's not, and I think there's this difference here that we're really trying to figure out, which is, there's you and I that work in the industry. Then there's amazing people who are really dedicated to supporting women in business, that are travelers, that have no sort of professional incentive to do it. And then there's like the rest of the world that's not even thinking about this stuff yet. And there's this process that we need to go to of not only making it, you talk about making it possible to find this stuff. Now it's like, okay, let's get to the point where first we're making it possible to find this stuff. Now we're making it impossible to avoid this, because that's the point that we need to get to eventually, where when you're traveling, it's like in front of you, how to make these decisions better in ways that align with your own values.
Exactly. And that is, tying it all together. We're talking about the traveler's individual responsibility, and like where social media comes into play is that if you're traveling in Bangkok and you discover a woman-owned business, or you meet a local leader who's just, blowing out the gate with amazing work that she's doing in her community, there might not be a New York Times article on this woman. There might not be a listing of this business in Lonely Planet, but your social media post on this person that you met or this business that you discovered will have a domino effect and will influence travelers going there to go support that business. So that is what I mean by beyond a sort of financial responsibility to support these businesses as travelers. And as you say, sort of be an angel investor in these communities when we arrive there. There's also this responsibility for just awareness for how we represent a place, and how also we choose to talk about a place. And I think that that's also something that's super key, and especially within the world of travel writing, is that, we have this tendency to sort of other destinations and other communities and make it sort of seem like this like exoticism of like, check out this exotic place and these exotic people. And it's like that barrier that you create between the people of a destination and the people that are visiting a destination actually does it a disservice when you're othering people in that way. And so like these little nuances of how we travel and how we speak about travel and how we represent travel really have an impact on the industry and on travel consumers as a whole.
And I think one of the things that I've seen recently that has been a really great way to kind of take the focus away from that is this concept of like community driven tourism, right? Which is, I'm not, and that's something that we have to face in travel, right? When I started Wonderful in 2009, it started as a travel blog. And travel blogs, that is inherently a person travels to a place and writes about it. But what does that mean? It means that it's my perspective about somebody else's place time and time again. And this really neat initiative of kind of community-driven journalism is, let's bring in the voices of the local community to talk about their own home, and to make sure that we're leveraging those voices as well. So it's not just, let me tell you about my experience in a place that I have only been in for a few days that I actually don't really know a whole lot about because I'm not from there. But let's actually have, that place speak for itself through the eyes of somebody who lives there.
You're right. I mean, I have been working now as an editor / writer for I don't want to age myself here, probably 10 years.
45 years.
Yeah.
That would be great. I'd be like, what kind of face cream are you using, Nikki?
I'm plucking the gray hairs in between writing assignments. But no, I have been in the industry now probably for 10 something years. And there is a real shift to that point of what you just said, where travel writing used to not really seem to care about having that local voice and that local perspective. And I remember getting pitches from writers that were like, hey, I spent 10 days in Peru and I want to write the definitive guide to visiting Peru. And it would slide through. It would get commissioned. Now, what I'm seeing is a lot more mindfulness when it comes to commissioning pieces, because that local voice matters. And the perspective of someone who lives in Peru, whether born and raised or an expat who's been living there for years, really just holds more weight and holds more depth than someone who's just there for a week vacation and is acting as though they have the authority to speak to this country and this culture when they've just spent a week there. And so I think that you're seeing, I hope you all are seeing this sort of deepened level within travel writing of this appreciation for the local voice. And as such, because there's this emphasis on getting local perspective and getting that local authority on destinations, you're starting to see diversifying. You're starting to see a diversifying of writers within the freelance space, which I think is just amazing. And I see that, with Unearthed Women, where we commission stories. I see that with Voters, where we commission stories, where we're really just looking for diverse voices to step forward and represent their communities and represent their cultures. And that is, that's an evolution within the travel media landscape that wasn't there when I first started out.
Well, and so I want you to go into this a little bit more, because we haven't talked about Voters. So Nikki, except in your bio, Nikki is an editor at Voters Travel. I need some, whatever you got in that boob mug, I need some of it too. An editor at Voters Travel. She also is so you're an editor of 2 publications at the same time. And in a lot of ways, editors are kind of the gatekeepers of what's going out there, right? I try not to think of media as the fact, because media is in itself, whether or not the content itself is biased, the fact that the content is even published, that is a decision that is made, and so everything is curated in some way. And so I want to know more about your experience as an editor. How are you thinking about this in terms of wanting to create a more equitable travel ecosystem, knowing that you in a lot of ways are the gatekeeper of these words, but also knowing that there have been barriers that are keeping people from even publishing this stuff in the first place? What are some of the active steps that you're taking, and what's some of the advice that you have for people who are writers or who are in an editorial seat as well, for them to kind of start changing some of the ways that they've been operating?
Yeah. So on the side of Unearthed Women, because so much of what we do is focused on feminist city guides and also sort of profiles of women doing really cool things, it's really just leaning again on sort of local writers, especially with the feminist city guides, because we're trying to kind of cull together this database of women-owned businesses in cities that don't have a women-owned badge on Google or Yelp. We're really leaning on local writers and expats to sort of pitch us their stories and speak to their own hometowns and communities to help us discover those women-owned places. And that really is just that's all them. That is, you know, it makes my life easier when I get a well thought out pitch from a freelance writer who says, hey, I'm from Sydney. You don't have a guide to Sydney yet. And I can list off 10, 15, 20 women owned businesses that would make a great addition. And I think, great, that's perfect. This is someone who lives here. Cool. This is someone that knows it. Awesome.
Check.
On the side of Photors, which I have to say, my managing editor is somewhere in the audience. So hi, Rachel.
Rachel's like crossing her fingers and toes right now. Like, Nikki, do us okay. Hi, Rachel.
But for real with Photors, you know, one thing that they do, and it's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke up the ass of my team, but I promise I'm not. When I worked at previous publications and we would get this waterfall of pitches every day, all the time, just a constant onslaught of pitches, a lot of them would go unanswered. And one thing that Photors does, which I think is really special because I have not seen this in all my time editing at different publications, is that every week, twice a week, our entire digital editorial team sits down and goes through every single pitch one by one.
Oh
and
God.
Whether we accept it or not, you will get a response. And I think that is such a courtesy, because freelance writers are really, they're the wheels behind a publication. They are the reason that these publications are successful, have names, have budgets, earn money, can pay salaries, is because these freelance writers are giving their stories and their time to lift these publications up. And what we do at Photors is that we will discuss every single incoming pitch and decide as a team if we want to move forward with it. And the things that sort of fuel that discussion is it timely? What is the background of this person who's pitching this story? Are they locally based? You know, do they have expertise? And so my advice to sort of any aspiring travel writer, freelancer is, you know, one of the best writing advice in general, I think, is sort of write what you know. You know, that is where you're going to find the most emotion. That is where you're going to find the most expertise and also the most unique perspective. When you write what you know, that story becomes yours, uniquely yours. And so I think some of the best pitches we get are from writers who are writing what they know, whether it's pulling from an experience or pulling from their hometown. That's what gets me going when I find a good pitch like that.
And who was it? Joanne, you said this visual of like the waterfall of pitches, but no, I mean, I love this visual of the Photors team sitting down and like everybody's reading through all of these pitches at once. Yeah. And the reason why I love it too is because sometimes, and I have been, you know, I have done this as well, which is I look through pitches and I just don't have time and I'm exhausted. And if a pitch isn't written really well, I'll be like, it's going to be too much work to work on. The problem with that is sometimes the story is really important. And even though it might not have been formatted, you know, super well, it's a story that should be told. And some people have more energy to devote to working with a writer than others. And I think knowing that there's multiple people in the room, so that if somebody does see that and have a different perspective, they can say, well, actually, I disagree, you know, and I think this should go forward, or that, like, it gives a little bit more of that, you know, opportunity, I think. And I think that that's something I would like to see from a lot of the travel industry. You know, oftentimes I hear from travel companies, larger travel companies, that are like, okay, I understand you're saying we need to diversify our C-suite. We need to bring more voices to the table. But let's think about this realistically, because realistically, I'm not just going to fire somebody who's doing a fine job just so that I can hire somebody else so that I'm filling out the diversity quota. And I'll say, you know, that's fair. And I understand that it can be really hard to figure out logistically how to do something, but there's other things that you can be doing. You can bring in an advisory board. You can hire consultants. You can have other voices. You're not necessarily saying, okay, let's just, you know, blatantly fire someone and, you know, bring some, but like, when are there opportunities to bring in other voices that can help you? Because this is only going to help you. And thinking about it from that side, I think can be really powerful, of just what other voices should be at this table and how can we make sure that they are being represented here in some way. And eventually when a spot does open, great, you know, but I think like sometimes I think people can be quick to just say like, well, that's not a possible solution for us, so we're going to not do that right now. And then it's like we're taking ourselves out of the equation and our unique responsibility to push this whole movement forward. And it's less of like looking for the opportunities and seeing where they are, and more of like making the opportunities happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It absolutely is about creating opportunities, and also just creating opportunities for people to, I did not have a regular path to becoming a travel editor. I wasn't an editorial intern and that worked her way up. I took a very scenic route. I went from being a waitress to working in advertising to working in PR to working in marketing. Like, I basically was like a pinball bouncing around the world and industry until I landed to where I wanted to go. And the point of me saying that is that this is about creating opportunities for people that maybe didn't go about this in the traditional sense, that maybe didn't have the opportunity to go about this in the traditional sense, but that still deserve a chance to tell their story, or deserve a chance to have a seat at the table, or to be a part of this industry. At the end of the day, like, travel is, and it's so funny because it's such a simple thought, travel is a global experience. So the media that represents travel should have a global roster of voices, because we're representing a global industry. And that, to me, that's just like, duh. Come on.
Right. But you say, but it's like, that's not the way it's been for so long, that it's these things that are so commonsensical are, now we have to kind of make a shift and decide, okay, this is something that we need to do. And each of us is responsible for playing a part in that. I mean, even, if you're thinking about, we're kind of on this topic of like travel journalism and writing. So even if you're not in that industry, if you're reading decide what you're reading, like be selective about what you're reading, because we have technology nowadays that shows what articles are being read and what articles are not being read, and so be selective about what you're reading, and focus your time and energy and comment on stuff that's really important, and share stuff that's really important, because that stuff is going to signal to somebody, wow, we should do more of this. And so you do have a role. It's not just like hoping that the editors pick the right thing, although certainly they do play a role in gatekeeping, but we all play a role in that amplification.
Exactly. And you don't have to be a writer. You don't have to be an editor. Like, you might be listening to this and be like, this doesn't apply to me. It does apply to you. Because at the end of the day, it's about introducing different perspectives. And to your point, whether you're reading different articles or you're following a wealth of different voices on social media, it's about allowing different perspectives to come into your newsfeed and come across your eyes, because that really is important. Like, that perspective and varying perspective, I think, is the antidote to a lot of sort of the hate and discrimination that plagues society today, is that ability to push yourself out of the way for a second and allow yourself to listen to the experience of someone with disabilities, or a person of color, or someone who's part of the LGBTQ plus community. To just listen to those varying perspectives is really important. And as travelers, we travel for perspective. And so we should just be using any tools that are, dispensed to amplify that.
Okay, so speaking of different perspectives, I think this is a perfect time to bring in which is, oh my gosh, you have one too. This is so amazing.
I know. What?
What? So she's like, I have 100 of these. This is Wanderess, and this is a new book that has come out by Nikki, as well as your co-editor, Elise. And I want you to tell me about it and tell us about it. And then I also want to share something that I'm just going to put up on the screen right now really quick, and then I'm going to put it up again after. But we've talked a little bit about Wanderful. We've talked a little bit about Wanderess. I know some of you have put in the comments you're heading off to meetings, so I want to make sure you get this, and you'll get it in the recording too. We are doing a special giveaway this week at Wanderful. We have our global membership community where you can meet women all around the world, wherever you are, both at home and abroad, have local access to women. There's 3,000 in our network. We're doing a 30% off code for you to come and be part of our sisterhood. So if you go to sheswonderful.com/join and use the code Wanderous in all caps, Wanderous30, you'll get 30% off your membership for life. Now, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to give you a copy of this book because number one, you should read it. And number two, we're going to do a book club meeting to talk about it. So I'm going to take this off the screen. Nikki, I want to hear about everything you want to know about Wanderous. We'll bring this back on later. And tell me, like, let's flip through the journey of writing this. Give everyone a quick synopsis, maybe to start.
Sure. So Wanderous is, I might copy here.
I'll be your Vanna White. Like, da, da,
yes,
da, da, da. Oh, look at that.
Yes.
Perfect.
Oh,
It
like,
just opened right to Nikki. So
there are some stories about the illustration process of the author.
Oh, I love it. Here's another one of her. We'll just show all the photos here.
Wanderous is an exhaustive women's travel guide, and it's not destination focused, which I think is important because the content within here is meant to be evergreen, which is to say that you can open this up 10 years from now and the content within here should still be relevant and still be useful to you. What it is that this book is all encompassing of women's travel, and it covers everything from planning a trip to travel hacks to packing efficiently to what to do in case of emergency to how to connect with local women when you're traveling to how to find women-owned businesses when you're traveling to how to create your own feminicity guide. It covers ethical travel, responsible tourism. It even includes a section about adopting an animal abroad, which is directly inspired from my experience of adopting my dog in Belize.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it really kind of digs into all of these nuances of the travel experience and many of the issues that women face. And so the first step in writing this book was really to recognize that once again, it had to have varying perspectives. I am one person, I have one perspective and one experience. And so it really came into bringing in women like Beth Santos, who can lend words. She is in here. She, lending words, wisdom, and experience to the book to speak to different nuances of the woman's travel experience. And so we have Onika Raymond speaking to, first of all, she shares an incredible section on how to pack efficiently and only travel with one bag, which is, you got to read it. I mean, I learned things in there, but she speaks about traveling as a woman of color and everything that comes with that, choosing destinations, safety concerns. We have Danny Heinrich, who speaks about traveling as an LGBTQ plus traveler. And she addresses the nuances of checking into a hotel with your same-sex partner in a country where that might be a tricky situation, destinations that might be more friendly than others. We have, oh my God, we have Brooke Sayward, who talks about solo traveling, who's been solo traveling for like 15 years now. We have so many voices that come in here to address everything from traveling as a woman who's going through menopause. When is the last time you saw a travel article address that? There are some really real challenges there. To traveling as a woman who's pregnant, traveling with new kids, having sex abroad, the considerations of that. Like it is so nuanced and so detailed with every sort of scenario you could think of. And it taps the minds and the wisdom and the expertise of women across the industry. So it might be I'm the co-author of this book alongside Elise, who's the co-founder of Unearthed Woman, but really it is a collaborative effort. And this book takes the torch that Unearthed Woman let and just carries it forward. And I mean, I hope that anybody who picks this up will find something that speaks to them. And it also goes beyond the female travel experience. Again, there are tips in here that boyfriends, husbands, they can open this and be like, oh, that's how I can save a lot on travel. So it really is just an exhaustive resource for traveling today.
And the other thing I love about it too, first of all, it's just designed. It's so pretty. Like it's just really pretty to look at and like put on your shelf. And I had it at the Travel and Adventure Show. I like put it on my little, people are like, what's that book? But the other thing is you make it very personal to the reader as well. You have like a guide on how to create your own itinerary. You have phrases that they should learn. You have a space to just plan your trip that you could use for your own. And I think that that's really nice. It's like part guidebook, but also part workbook, but also just inspiration. You know, there's really good quotes in there. And I know, I don't remember what month, but I know it's coming up. We're going to be sitting down with you and
in
our
June,
wonderful
I think,
community in June. Okay, yay, good. So then we'll have a little bit of time to read it and then to hear from you and to talk more about the book and actually do that in a small group setting. So those of you who want in, definitely come up, be a wonderful member. You'll get access to all of our events, and then you'll get a free copy of this and you can start reading. And where do current members order a copy? Oh my gosh, great question. Where can people buy a copy, Nikki, if they want to do that?
So it's everywhere. It's in Amazon, it's in Target, it's in Walmart, it's in independent bookstores from here to Australia. Really wherever you want to get it, but I can drop a link into the chat, or Beth can email one out. If you just search Wanderous book, Penguin Random House, the Penguin Random House landing page lists the retailers. So you can choose your preferred retailer. But yeah, it's really kind of all over the place. So you can find it. And if you find it somewhere cool, let me know on Instagram. It has been the biggest joy to see where this book has been landing. I've seen it in airports. I've seen it in Urban Outfitters. I've seen it in local shops over in Brisbane. And it's so exciting to just see it landing all over the world.
That must just be such a neat feeling too, to know that like this thing that you've just spent so much time and energy and heart working on, and then you see it in like a store and you're like, that's me. Did you ever have a moment where you're like, or like, I have to tell this staff person right now that this is my book?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's funny because I'm actually, I'm like really shy and a little bit of like an introvert. So when I go out, my boyfriend, he'll be with me and he'll like want to make a scene about it. Like he'll be like, you should go up to them and tell them you're the author. And I'm like, no. So
I'm here for my book signing.
I have literally, I'm embarrassed to say, I have literally like gone up to like the booksellers and been like, are you carrying a book called Wanderous? And they'll be like, who's it by? And I'm like, oh, I think it's like Nikki Vargas something. Just to see if they have it in stock. I'm like too embarrassed to be like, I'm the author of the book. Where is it? And why isn't it on display? So somebody's like, I could have told us. It's because I'm at home right now.
You should just be like a total jerk about it. You should be like, wait, you don't know who wrote Wanderous? What is wrong with you?
I know. I really should. It's so funny because I was listening to a podcast and it was with Brene Brown. And this is such a good takeaway for every woman here. She was talking about how her first book was a total flop. Just like complete, like it was such a flop that the publishers were basically like, we'll give you the excess books that didn't sell because they're going to be destroyed in a week. And the thing is that once she finished writing it, she didn't promote it. She was just like, I did it. I'm done. She thought she was above the promotion. She was just like, you know what? I did the words and now I'll just let the praise roll in. And she talks about it on this great podcast called How to Fail with Elizabeth Day. And she says in the podcast, she says, you know what? I realized in that moment that if you're not going to champion the work that you do, why the hell would anyone else? And that sort of stuck with me, that as women, we have this tendency sometimes to sort of be like, okay, yeah, I'm the author of that, and just kind of put our head down. And I thought that was such a great quote because she's just like, you got to be out there. Like, if you're not believing in your project and fighting for it and championing it and telling people to go out and get a copy because this is the best book ever, no one else is going to do it for you. And so
I love that.
I'm working on that. I'm working on it.
But it's hard. It is. It's hard. And it's like, it's a flex, and I think we have to, just like any regular flexing, you got to do it a couple times before you start feeling comfortable. And it can be really hard, and society tells us not to. And, there's so much judgment being passed around, and we have to I think this is like such a good full circle conversation because we're talking about International Women's Day, and we're talking about celebrating ourselves and patting ourselves on the back.
Normalize flexing.
Normalize. Oh, I love that.
Normalize flexing on International Women's Day. Like, I feel like, like a man is like, writes a book and he's just like, kicks open the door like the Kool-Aid man and is like, I'm a bestseller. Here it is. And a woman's like, oh yeah, well, I guess you could find it in the travel section.
I just did the small, I don't even know if they have it. Maybe they didn't even put it on the shelf.
Have you heard of Nikki Vargas? No, we gotta.
I'm gonna make you some business cards that are like, I wrote that book, and you can just pass them to somebody. Yeah, just on like somebody's looking at it, you can just like hand them a card, be like, here's my autograph.
Exactly. Normalize flexing.
That's awesome. Ladies. Normalize flexing, everybody. So we're coming close to the end. I'm gonna put this on the screen again. This is where you can get a free copy of Wanderous. Go to sheswonderful.com/join. Come join our community. We do really fun events like this all the time. We have a whole crew of resident experts who are here to support you. We have really neat in-person events. We have chapters, and we have this awesome book club, and you can come and read Wanderous for free and have a copy on your bookshelf. Nikki, as we close out, tell me, what does, it sounds so silly to ask, but like, what does International Women's Day mean to you? Because we don't all celebrate it. And, sometimes it just consists of us waking up one morning and going, oh my gosh, it's March 8th and all of this media is doing stuff about this and whatever. But is there something that we should be thinking about on this day more than any other day? And if so, what is it?
Absolutely. International Women's Day, to me, simply put, is a day to lift women's voices. And it honestly is a reminder more than a day of what we should be doing all the time, day in, day out. It is our responsibility to lift women's voices, to lift the voices of minorities, and to continue those conversations that matter. And in whatever medium you work in, whether it's social media, whether it's travel writing, whatever it is, we all have a responsibility to tell women's stories and to push their voices to the forefront in a media landscape where they often get drowned out. And today is a day to remind ourselves of that responsibility.
There was a really great quote that I saw on Instagram, a quote on Ronnie Chima, who is the creator of
I love
Travels.
Ronnie.
Yeah, Ronnie's amazing. And Ronnie put on Instagram something like, there's so much of this feeling of competition sometimes that's kind of pushed on us out in the world, especially in the space of, travel businesses or like women's focused businesses or whatever it is. And she was like, there's so much cookie, everybody. We can all have a piece of cookie. Like there's so much of it. And I think it's such a good thing to remind ourselves, because we're in a place where, we have International Women's Day. This is our chance to really think about this. This is our chance to flex for ourselves, but this is also our chance to like honor every piece of work that is moving this initiative forward across the board. Just shout from the rooftops, all the things that inspire you, all the things that people are doing that are really cool. I would say, even if you're in a business like your competitors, because everybody's pushing this needle forward. And that's so important in a space where we talked about in the beginning, women are 85% of the travel industry, yet we're this like little tiny segment, and there's so much cookie to be eaten and to be distributed. We just have to like all be on the same page to get that out there and to use this day as a way to continue to amplify, especially for people who are not thinking about that very much. I'm getting a request to put the last slide back up, so I'm going to put this up. Thank you, Virginia. We're not thinking about this every day. Okay, this is the day that they're going to think about it. Use this time, and then let's challenge people to be thoughtful about this every day of the year. How can we include voices that are not represented? How can we make sure that the travel industry is representing all of the people in the world who the world is a very diverse place. It's the world. So how can we continue to do that? And I think using this as a way to just start and then push each other forward is the best thing that we can do.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, the competitors and exactly, I saw Ronnie's message too on Instagram. It really is about lifting up those voices, and don't waste time begrudging your competitors. At the end of the day, your competitors are out there cracking the glass ceiling alongside you. Any stride that they make is a step further for you, and vice versa. We are all out here with our chisel, breaking through that goddamn glass ceiling, and we should be championing each other on that journey. And so I think that today is a day to remember that bond, remember that unity, and remember that responsibility to continue to champion each other and champion each other's voices.
Nikki, it is a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for taking a day when I'm sure you're being pulled in so many directions on International Women's Day to come and to chat with us. I really enjoyed having this conversation. To everybody who participated in the comments, thank you for sharing your opinions, your thoughts, your perspectives. I wish you so much success and goodness out in the world. Let's continue to challenge each other. And Nikki, any last words to leave people with today?
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy
everyone.
International Women's Day. Thanks everyone
go do
for
something.
being
Self-care.
go do something. That's a good way to end this. Go do
Something.
something, everyone.
Treat
Go flex
yourself,
a little
people.
bit today. Treat
Yes.
yourself and flex. Thanks again, Nikki. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.